Hi there, this is Shauna from the Foil Fox. Thanks so much for joining me today. Today I'm showcasing the Bouquet Backdrop die by Ink to Paper. It's a new one for them, and it's a one-piece die, and it makes these fabulous flower and leaf bouquet. And you can see it here. It's just this one piece, and I'm going to cut that whole thing out from a piece of white Nina cardstock. This is 110 pound. So when I cut that out, I'm going to make sure that it's cut all the way through, and I'm going to leave it in exactly this, I don't want to pull it out of the negative space yet, because I want to outline this entire, all the flowers and leaves. And I'm doing this with a Kuretake Zig pen, which is very similar to a micron, Pigment micron pen. You can use that instead if you have that on hand. But I'm just outlining all of the flowers and the leaves. Now I'm leaving a little bit of a white border. You don't want to go on the very, very edge. You want to leave a tiny bit of a white border and then just go around this. It's very easy to do. That doesn't require any artistry. Just tracing it kind of back around those cut up parts, leaving that little tiny bit of white border. And I'm using the where they have cutouts for the inside of the flowers to just use those to kind of outline them too. And this will give, by doing this, that gives a kind of an artsy look to it, which I really like, because I plan on not coloring these flowers completely. I'm going to leave a lot of white exposed. So sorry, my hand holds that down and you don't see much of it. And that's because that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm holding it down so that none of the pieces bend or rip. But I just go through and very carefully just take my time, and I create those borders around each of the leaves and flowers. And then you can see there's two centers to the flowers. We're going to leave those intact. In a few minutes though, I will poke them out and I'll show you what we'll do with them then. But for right now, we're going to work on the background. And the background, I'm using a piece of Bristol paper. You can use Nina White if you want, but I'm using Bristol paper because it blends really nicely. The inks move a lot more easily. And I started out with vintage cream. It's not only cream in color, but it also has a very creamy kind of consistency to it. And so it spreads very nicely. Now I'm still leaving some white space. I don't want it completely covered with ink. I want to leave some white on the left, and I'll get more and more intense as I move to, I want to leave white on the right, and it'll get more and more intense colored as I move to the left. So I started out with a vintage cream, and then I went to Harvest Gold, and then the very darkest is Bright Buttercup. And you can see I left that some white space there, and I'm poking out now the centers of those flowers because we're going to keep those and color those in a few minutes. But first, we're just going to do a little bit of coloring to these flowers and leaves. Now I use those cosmetic blending brushes, and in that set is these little small brushes, these little round ones, and they're perfect for this. And don't worry, I do list everything in the supply list. There's a link down below. You can click on that and it'll take you to the blog, and it will show you a complete supply list and all of the close-ups. It has tons more things there to take a look at. But I'm using Spring Rain for the light blue, and then Blueberry Sky for the detail in the center. And then I just smushed some Blueberry Sky off onto my glass mat, and I'm using a tiny bit of water with a tiny brush and just painting those berries because they were just too tiny to get in there. And then to color the leaves, I'm going to start out with green parakeet for the lighter color. Again, I'm using one of those small round brushes. And then for the shading part, for the darker part, I will use a new leaf. And you can see I'm leaving a lot of white to this because I don't want it completely colored. Now we're going to do those little centers to the flowers, and I'm taking some honey nut, and as you can see, these are all paper tray inks. They have such luscious colors, and there's so many of them. It works out great. And I just, with a little bit of water, painted those centers. Now I'm removing all the negative part of this die cut. I want to just remove all the outside areas so I can reveal this really beautiful bouquet. And I'm poking out all of the little cutouts for the flowers and leaves so I can show all the detail. And at the same time, I'm going to take two little bits of foam tape, and I'm going to put it at the center of the two flowers where the centers are missing right now. So the big flower and there's another flower. So you can see those two spaces. And by doing that and adhering them there, now it makes it sticky on the front side so I can stick in those centers. It also pops it up, and it'll also give me the ability to stick it down to the background when I'm ready to do that. So it's a real handy thing to do. It does three things in one. So I'm kind of positioning, getting an idea where I might want to have it, because now I'm going to stamp a sentiment, and I'm using the tagged sentiment set from Ink to Paper. It's very, very handy. It has many sentiments on there. Some of them are script, some of them are block, and I think I'm going to use happy birthday because I can never have enough happy birthday cards. So I'm adhering the panel down with a piece of washi tape, and I've positioned it onto a block that has lines on it, and I'm going to line it up and stamp it, the lines on the block with the lines on my um, glass mat, and it works very nicely because that makes sure that they're very straight. If I've got the panel straight and it's the stamp straight on the acrylic block, and then I line it up with the lines on the glass mat, then you know it's straight on. Now I use true black to do that. Now I'm using a foam panel that I put on the back of the inked panel. Now I have a white panel that's a little bit bigger because I'm trying to create some white borders, because I really, really want to showcase and have it be, kind of airy. And I think that the white does that. So you can see this has a border around it, but then we're going to put it onto a slightly larger card base. And so you're going to see even more white border to it. And with that stuck on there now, I'm going to just position the flower. And since it's all one piece, it's all done. I think that's just fabulous. Now I'm going to show you how you can do it with a colored border, a background, excuse me, as well. I'm using antique gray here, and I'm using fresh snow, which is white, and it is creamy in consistency. And I like putting it all over, but leaving the part that won't have any ink where I have the Post-it note. By the way, I use the Post-it note so that it doesn't I don't get my fingerprints all over it. And then I'm using, I told you, the fresh snow, and then soft stone is the middle color, and weather vane is the darker color. And I just keep working it back and forth with having the dark color on the left, the middle color in the middle, and then more to the right is the lighter color, and still leaving some that doesn't have any ink at all. But I go back and forth with these colors to just kind of blend them so that they have a nice transition. You don't have to be too picky about it because the flower display is going to cover a lot of this as well, and so you're not going to notice too much about it if it doesn't blend perfectly. And now with that done, I poked out those little centers just like I did before. And I'm going to use a lavender because I think grays and lavenders work really nicely. And this is Lilac Grace is the lighter color, and then Plum Pudding is the darker color. I just think that's so pretty. And I'm going to use a little bit different green to this. I'm going to use the center to be the same, the center of the flowers to be the same, but the green is Ocean Tides. And I'm just choosing to, in some places in the more shaded areas, to be more intense about it. But in the, when it fades out to a lighter color, I'm just going lightly with my brush since I'm only using one color. And I am again going to use that honey nut for the centers of this and do them the same way as I did before by smushing a little on my glass mat. And I'm also coloring the berries with the Plum Pudding, the darker color, just like I did with the other ones. These are all done exactly the same. I just wanted to show you that you can use a darker background if you want, and it can be very effective and have a really pretty display. Now I was going to stamp the sentiment, doing the same thing, kind of getting an idea of where I want the sentiment. And this sentiment from the same set, I'm choosing Thank You. And I want to mention that these sentiments have kind of a delicate look to them, so you don't want to really smash down the sentiment when you're stamping it. You want to use kind of a light touch. Now I have foam behind the inked panel as before, and I already put on the white panel and then onto the white card base. So all I have left to do is to use the foam tape just exactly as I did before, and there you have it. I'm going to use a little, I do take a micron pen, or my Kuriaki zig pens, and I just put little dots in the center just to add a little interest. So here you see some close-ups of it, and I just love how delicate it is. It doesn't look very delicate, does it, when you just cut it out and you haven't pulled everything away, but once you do, you have this really delicate display, and I think that's very, very pretty. And then here is the yellow one that we did first of all. It's nice to see it in these close-ups with the happy birthday. And keep in mind, of course, you can use any kind of sentiments that you have. It's just that particular set has so many really nice sentiments in it that are just very useful. And here is the pink. I did this one previously. And for the background, I use Sweet Blush, Pale Peony, and Lovely Lady for the darkest color. And then the flowers were Hibiscus Burst, and the dark color of the pink was Raspberry Fizz with a bright buttercup center to the flowers. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And remember, you can always click the link down below to go to the blog where you'll have more close-ups and a complete supply list. Or you can go to foilfox.com/blog or foilfox.com just to go to our web store. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.